Besides the health history and the dietary form, you also want to have an indication of what the current level of training is for the athlete. The training athlete is going to be using a lot of calories, and so it's important to get an idea about the caloric expenditure of the athlete. This will help you to determine what kind of challenges the person has in terms of getting snacks and meals, when the snacks should be done, and when they do have time to make meals. Here's an example of an exercise log. You'll see it has the A for what activities were done, D is the duration in minutes, and I is the intensity. This does work better for endurance activities, but it also can be done, an adaptation for strength training. So here, if you have more than one a day, or you could have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4 in the month. But if somebody has do-a-days, that's going to need some adjustment for the log. When you calculate an energy expenditure, the resting energy expenditure calculation can be done based upon a person's activity level. And there's a nice table in Chapter 10 that gives you some calculations for activity factor. And we'll probably do some of that in the assignment with the chapter. When the athlete records their food, they are going to give you as much detail as they can. At the consultation, you will go over the food analysis or the food diary and get some clarification about how it's prepared, where it's prepared, when it's prepared, when it's eaten, whether or not there are additional condiments that are on that food. So that's part of the interview. You can also use the My Plate on choosemyplate.gov, which is a really great way of looking at half the food on the plate should be fruits and vegetables, a quarter carbohydrate, and a quarter of that as the initial guide for proteins. The challenges most frequently needing to be addressed are how large the portion actually was. Having examples of bowls or plates with you can be really helpful. Having example food items, if you're fortunate enough to have that can be available for you. And you can purchase those if you have funding for that. Whether or not someone had mustard, ketchup, mayonnaise, what kind of mayonnaise, gravy, etc. All of those are often overlooked. The brand can be helpful because certain food analysis, nutritional analysis categories will have brand names or restaurants. So you can look up Taco Bell, Chalupa, where it's been made, if it was purchased, if it was a fast food, if it was made at home from a box. And also many times athletes will forget to put that they had beverages, and so that is important to get that information as well. There's some good examples of resources that you can utilize, you can take a look at, and we'll go ahead and look at one of those. We'll probably use the chronometer. That one is particularly free. Fit Day is free, and I think what we'll do is we'll use the Gatorade Institute food analysis. That's a real nice one as well. The report is going to give you a lot of information. It depends on which analysis material or analysis program that you use, but you will definitely get a breakdown of calories, macronutrients, fiber, calcium, and iron and sodium are always included. and then the major vitamins. In some, you will get even more. So here you can have, based upon the demographic information and the level of activity, you'll get a recommended number, which is the second column, and then you have your dietary analysis, what you entered, and you'll get percent recommended. And you'll tend to see a couple things that are very common, and one is if you look at the sodium level, 290% of the recommended amount. That's not uncommon. It's also not uncommon to have a elevated or a very low fiber content, and sometimes calcium and iron might be of big issue. The carbs are a little bit challenging depending on which program you use. The recommended number of carbs can be problematic because they'll use a value that is the recommended minimal amount, or if they do the percentage. So that's something to look at in terms of what is that actual number that is calculated for the recommended carbohydrate intake. This is a way of looking at a one-day food intake to the MyPlate, and I think this is kind of a nice way of getting a quick look. There are a number of, once you know what the caloric needs are for your athlete, there are numerous charts that will identify the caloric requirement and then identify what the grains, fruit, vegetables, protein, dairy, and oil category will be. Then you look at the food and you put it in the correct category. So for example, the puffed oat cereal, that would be in the grain category, and it would be in ounces, not necessarily in cups. And you'll see the cereal bar, whole grain pita, a bun, and at the bottom, the daily value. So here, if we compare our daily value to our recommended value up at the top, the person has done well, has met the needs in grains, has exceeded fruit, has met the 3-cup vegetable, has met the protein, met the dairy, and not quite the oils and empty calories. And it is a little challenging to be able to determine where sometimes missing that oil. Did you cook with oil? Is that in the recipe? That might not be. If a person cooked at home, they might not add that oil. So there are a lot of good questions that need to be asked to clarify, to get the best amount of information as possible.